Guys, thanks for joining us on another time. We wanted to make sure that we could get at our AM crews and get to introduce them to you as well. We've been doing these 8 o'clock kind of shows to get to know the people that we see on the night shift. But I was talking to some of the guys who have interest. And again, we've got dayside shifts that we got to accommodate for. We want to make sure everyone's voice is heard. We got a guy who you've seen around. This is Octavio Lopez. So we're going to find out where you coming from, Octavio Lopez. He's a photojournalist for ABC7 Chicago, but he's done an array of things, right? Octavio, is that about right? Before you did this, besides being a photojournalist and editor, you were a director. You were also a producer on music videos, which I think is pretty cool. You've talked to an array of people, a wide variety, but we want to find out, how did you get into that?
So long time ago, I wanted to be in high school. Me and my friends, we all got together and we all loved to make music. We all freestyled with one another. And
now, was it competitive or fun? Did you guys rag on each other through it, or how'd you do it?
It was fun.
Yeah.
We'll crack jokes on each other, and we'll just make it as slick as possible and make it rhyme. And in saying that, we loved it so much that we ended up recording it onto a beat and selling it out of the trunk. And doing.
Now, where could we find your shop back then?
Actually, so in for high school, I was in Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
So I was born here, and then for high school, as I always say, my mom shipped me out to Orlando to avoid all the craziness of the inner city.
So you found a creative outlet to do something to get your energy. We're kind of talking offline. And as I think many people in this line of work are, a little ADHD. We're high stimulus people. You can't do a desk job. You obviously, at this age, we're also kind of finding your creative outlets. Tell me how that went. Tell me what the feedback was like.
The feedback was actually pretty good. So doing the music, that led me onto finding myself, hosting a radio show. By this time, I was maybe like 2021. And then the radio show, I got great feedback off of that. And the reason why I got the radio show, let me just explain a little bit more. Of course, my aspirations in becoming a rapper in those days, I couldn't get my music on the radio. I was told too much that I sounded too close to Pitbull, like his sound, in the very beginning when he first came out. And then
maybe he sounds like you. No?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. My argument back then, I was like, but he's Cuban, I'm Puerto Rican. There could be room for both of us. So anyways, so I wanted to get my music on the radio, and then I ended up finding. So I was doing a live show on stage, and this guy approached me and said, "What do you think of having your own radio station?" And then that lit up my eyes in a sense to where dreams come true. Now I get to play my own music on the radio show. So that was what I first intended to do, and then from there, that grew on to other artists, local artists, saying. Play my music, hook me up. So, and then I ended up doing that. And then that grew, and this was all again in Orlando. That all grew pretty big to where I started attracting producers for the mainstream. And there were, since it was, somewhat popular in the area, in the Spanish world, reggaeton music, there was a famous rapper. He's still around now. His name is DJ Khaled. So he's like trap music for the reggaeton culture. So anyways, he was my first big interview. And then that went on to basically doing TV, because somebody approached me saying you should have your own TV show. That way you could talk to these people and we could see them and know that it's really them. And I was like, all right, well, we could do that too. I'm not afraid. Let's do this. That was always my.
This was like an online television show,
No, on TV.
describe
So with
how you transition. Huh. Yeah, tell us
right,
a little
so
about that.
with
That's
there
very interesting.
in Orlando, so like over here is Comcast, and then in Orlando is Bright House. I don't know if it still is. I haven't been there in a while, but at the time it was Bright House Networks, and that's where I aired. It's kind of the same thing as like Cable 25 here, where
Okay.
the local people get on. So it's that same idea, and then
So kind of like a CAN TV, where you
yeah,
get the community involvement, community engagement, telling the message and the stories of the community. But here you've customized it to your art.
right. That's exactly
Okay,
what it is.
fantastic. So how did that go for you? And you were able to get these guys to come on to your show?
Yeah, and that was the hard part. So I couldn't because I was independent, so I didn't have all this money like a regular like BET, whatever you could 106 in Park or whatever. So
Sure.
I didn't have that money. So what I always said is that I had a mobile studio, so I'll bring everything to you, and then like set up and then do the interview wherever you are, and
Yeah.
then that clicked with so many A&Rs and other record labels that they're like, all right, well, we're doing a show here, bring your crew and your cameras, and we'll set it up. So it was a win-win because they wanted free promo,
Yeah.
and then I wanted famous people on my show. So and then that during that whole time, I was still rapping, and then I pretty much produced my own music video, and then while having the TV show, I aired it, and then all those local artists from the radio show wanted their own music video. So like that was my first real, like my first time ever seeing money by producing something I did. Because everybody wanted it, so of course, like, oh, just give me $200, I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
And then like so many people were calling, so and then I was like, give me $500, just to, if you guys want me, you're gonna pay for it. So and then obviously
And,
like
and kind of thin out the people who really wanted it and who were really passionate, and those
right,
who were just like, hey, let's see if this guy will give me some free work, huh?
right, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
See.
So then you're building your brand, you're getting people. Tell us some of the people that you interviewed and what that was like for you. Especially,
So
do you interview people you were fans of? That's
uh,
always the first time you get that. That's always a pleasure.
so Pitbull, I was a fan because I saw him in the very beginning, and he, like I said earlier, like we rapped similar.
Yeah.
Now obviously I stopped rapping, but like his style of now to then is so different, and I was more into that, like hip hop, where like my style of music, if you could think of, is like Tupac, Snoop Dogg, that style. So like he reminded me of that with the Spanish flow to it, and obviously me being Spanish,
Yeah.
like that draw me into it. So like me meeting him that was pretty cool.
Did you take that chance to tell him, bro, you're sounding a little too much like me. You got to find your own style, or?
No, so I did it because I got to interview him 3 times. The first time it was like, it was just an experience. It was just like, well, I don't want to mess this up, so let me stick to the script. And the second time it was this he was like, hey, status, like we got to know each other, and this was all in like around 2006, and I doubt that he'll remember me now, 14 years later, but yeah, the same thing with DJ Khaled. We were talking about him off air.
Yeah.
So with him, it was interesting because I got to interview him, and then fast forward to a few years ago, he did a Ciroc mango commercial with Puff Daddy or P Diddy, whatever his name is now. And if you look it up on YouTube, you'll see me in there for like my.
Which one's that? What is that? I got to check that out.
It's the Ciroc, the liquor.
Yeah.
And I think it's mango, if I'm not mistaken.
I have to check that out for sure. So how'd you get your get in front of the camera for that? That's interesting.
So so basically, I wanted a TV show, and I really didn't have anybody to host it, and everybody that I had in mind, they were too afraid to talk to these people, and I always was like, they're normal people, just talk to them, just say what's up, and then let it flow from there.
Yeah.
And then, so I didn't find. I ended up not finding somebody in the very beginning. I didn't have anyone. So and then I ended up talking to all these people. And then since I was going in front of the camera, I didn't have anyone behind the camera. So I got cousins, friends, and whoever else wanted to meet a famous person by just holding my camera.
So you had a family business production company where everyone was a little bit starstruck, but also willing to do the work to get your show going.
Right. And you can always tell, like, I look back, this was a couple of years ago. I was looking back and just like, what is it? Just looking at everything that happened in the past. And you could tell when I shot it, and then you could tell when, like a novice person shot it. So like it was always, like on a wide shot versus, like close up on whoever's talking and their movements.
Yeah. Very by the script, just doing what they got to do to get in there to meet these guys.
Right.
So now you've started a production company. You're meeting people that you've kind of always wanted to meet. You have the whole radio and television going. What happened next for you? What was next on the journey? What did you see yourself? You were probably in your 20s at this time. Would you see this going? Were you going to continue to build your brand? Were you going to find something a little more mainstream? What did young Octavio see for himself?
So, so in 2007, 2006. So by the end of 2006, I think I tallied up about 200 interviews altogether. And, both in reggaeton and hip hop, R&B, even, I got Cool in the Gang. I ran into them. So I was like, hey, you guys want to do a quick interview? I'm that guy that always had the camera and ready to go.
Yeah.
So by the end of 2006, I felt like I was in top of the world in a very low budget way, since I wasn't really making money off of this, and that kind of got to me in a sense to where I wasn't making money, and I was, there was an artist, just to paint a bigger picture. There was a festival in Orlando called Calle Orange, and it was T-Pain and Notch. Notch is I don't know if he's still singing, but at the time, reggaeton and like R&B, he was mixed between English and Spanish. And I ended up, like me and the DJs, we became real cool, where we helped each other out. I'll promote their events, and they give me artists. You scratch my back, I scratch yours, type of deal. And like I ended up driving one of the, like a big time star to Miami from Orlando, because there was something going on in Miami, and I was like, hey, if you're gonna get me in, I'll take you over there.
So this is like an elevator speech, but now you got a whole couple of hours to pitch your services, huh?
Right. So and then
you probably took the long route there. You were like, GPS is telling you this is before GPS, so you could really just milk this ride. How'd you do it?
Well, like everything we were cool, just talking normal stuff, nothing business.
Yeah.
And but like that was one of the defining moments to where, like, man, I'm not getting paid for this. Like towards the end of the trip, he fell asleep actually in the car. So, and in the last hour or something like that. So, and then I was just like, and it was late after one of the shows. And I was just like, well, I'm here driving this guy. He's not paying me or anything. I pay for the rental. And I learned to rent cars versus beat up your car, as far as, wear and tear. Because I drove a lot to Miami, to Tampa, Jacksonville, like everywhere around Florida. So anyways, that was one of the defining moments to where I was like, okay, I'm not getting paid for this. Why the hell am I doing this?
You know, it's funny because I think that's that realization moment in a lot of people who end up becoming photojournalists in their youth. And whether or not it's even small markets, which sometimes have the same mentality, you start realizing, okay, I got to figure out what I'm going to do and where I'm going to go. What was the next step when you realized that, okay, I got to keep hustling, keep doing what I love, but monetize it? What bulb went off in your head? What was your next step?
So the crazy part is, fast forward to 2007, I came to Chicago for my grammar school. We had like this little reunion.
Okay.
And, they reached out. So I was just like, yeah, I'll go, whatever.
Just real quick, what kind of a reunion is for a grammar school? Did you guys get together and be like, so what did you do with your life? What track are you on? Like grammar school reunion,
Right.
When you were 20.
Right. So, and I guess because, there were a lot of cliques, in grammar school, and like one person, usually it's like one person will connect with this one person in another clique, and then that's how everybody gets together. But we were at a bar drinking, like just nothing real serious. It was just like, they made a night at a bar. We went, hung out, and then I was actually with my cousin, and going back to his place, I think it was like a day or two later. And again, I'm visiting Chicago. So, and then he told me if he wants me to go ahead and call who is my wife now, Leti. So, and that, because we had a thing back in the day, and like we all knew each other. And then we ended up meeting again, and then I moved out here to try it out with her. Like a month later, and then 2020, I'm still with her.
So you gave up your business, your hustle in Orlando, and took a chance out here, and it sounds like it paid off.
Yeah, it paid off. And then, I brought that hustle mentality here to Chicago, because Chicago, like it raised me in a sense to where, so a backstory is for me, where my hustler's ambition comes from, I guess. My mom is a single mother, and she worked 2 to 3 jobs during my upbringing, just to keep us, under a roof, clothes on our back, and all that good stuff. So with that said, I grew up always looking at that. So I knew you had to work hard if you wanted something. Like if you really wanted something, you gotta, bust your ass for it. Excuse me for saying that, but
hey, it's the podcast. It's not radio. So be real. Be as real as you need to be. So you busted your ass. You created something in Orlando. Now you brought it up here. New challenges, new people, new networks. What happened?
And then it just grew into in 2008. So in 2007, and again, so leaving Orlando, I was already like I was high in a sense to where I was getting all the famous people knew me, and then when those famous people would come to Chicago, they would already know me in a sense to where like, yeah, he's with us, let him through. So I got cool like that with like Rick Ross, knew my name during those times. So with that said, I was still in that weird mode in a sense to where it's still not making me money, so now I got to do something. So when I came over here, I started hustling music videos, as and I knew a lot of artists because of like what I was doing. It attracted a lot of the local talent in Chicago. So and then with that said, I made friends that I still know and talk to today from back then, and I started making music videos. And then that it went from 1 to 100 to now it's we're a little bit over 100 now. So I think it's like 110 or something like that. 110 music.
And I was just gonna. It looks like we have a lot of new viewers. I was just gonna say this is Media Essential Workers, where we kind of profile the people we see on the streets. And one of the things I didn't know about Octavio that I'm getting to know, and that I find fascinating, is his hustle started in music, where he had established a successful kind of firm, and that's what we just talked about. Got a lot of artists, many of whom you've heard of, and then transitioned into the music videos. And we were watching a couple of those, and they were just mind blowing. At the same time, or maybe shortly thereafter, you also started making some movies, correct?
Yes.
And that was surprising too. And I'm going to talk to my buddies who are at NBC as well, because I will say that one of the guys who does IT for us, who I have a great relationship with, I didn't know was an actor. Rhodey has starred in some of your productions.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. How'd you find these actors? How'd you get into that hustle?
So that was during my college days. So which one did you see?
I saw here Only One Way Out, which actually tell us about that movie too, because that was just like I'll tell you honestly what happened. I was doing a quick preview to see what we were going to talk about, and usually I give like 2 hours to kind of research everything. And I started watching that movie, and I just wanted to get a taste of it, and I couldn't stop watching it. And an hour into it, I was like, I got to get to setting the studio up, because it really captivated you. It was just like this experience that this guy's going through. I'll let you kind of give the synopsis of it.
Yeah, it was basically it. So the idea was to run kind of like a vibe off of my story, So, a guy, in his case, he was from Miami. In my case, from Orlando.
Yeah.
Or like really Chicago, but we're just basing it off in Orlando or in Florida. Anyways, so the story is the guy comes from Florida, comes to Chicago, sees a girl, falls for her, and then tries to like sweep her off her feet, in a sense to where he doesn't know how to dance. She's a dancer, salsa dancer. So he doesn't know how to dance, so he has to learn. So he tries to sign up for dance lessons. We try to throw in some comedy in there where there's no classes available, so he has to join the kids' class lessons. So, but yeah, so I'll let you guys, if you want to look it up, that way I don't spoil it.
Well, yeah, and I encourage everyone to watch that. And I'll tell you this, as an Indian guy myself, we have our own culture, we have our own dance. But when I saw how much luck he seemed to have with the whole salsa, I was like, yeah, I got to take one of those classes myself. My wife actually left for a moment, so keep that between all of us. But yeah, no, I thought it was great, captivating. I'm going to finish watching the rest of it after this. And next time I see Rhodey, tell him I got to see some of his acting. And that's what's phenomenal about this. People, them in a work level, but you never really get to know what inspires them, their passions, their other talents, their hobbies. Like I had no idea Rhodey was a great actor, not just an engaging actor. And I know him in this role, but I believed him in that role as that character.
So with Rhodey, so I got him. He was like my go-to guy. Like I had anytime a script came across to where we had to do something with, the antagonist or whatever, I was like, well, and Rhodey always came up to mind because he just knew how to channel that. And I was always like, okay, does Rhodey fit this? So, and then, I started, diving into the character and figuring out, what we need to figure out. So I used them, I think, maybe like a handful of times, something like that. And it was a small window that I was doing the movies, because of that, so I got into doing movies as my final exam project from school. And then the instructor loved it so much that he was like, man, you guys should really submit this to a film festival. And we're like, well, do you think, like we're just blown in a sense to where, okay, you think this is actually going to work?
Yeah.
This is our first time doing something. Is it that, that people are going to like it? So, and then fast forward, we went to the film festival. They loved it. They even brought me on stage to talk about it, amongst other, not too many directors were up there. I think it was like a total of like maybe 3 of us. to talk about our films, and that was an experience in itself.
What was your strength with that movie? Like, what do you think took it to the next level? Was it the authenticness of telling your own story? Was it able to capitalize on your unique experience in the Puerto Rican culture in Miami and then in Chicago? Like, what really gave it legs and told the story differently than other senior projects at the time?
So during that time of my life, I was always, anytime a project will come to me, I would always say, okay, if we're going to shoot this, let's be real about it. What can we pull off? Like, like I know, because, there was never a huge budget, never really a big budget to do anything. So I just had to know how to pull it off so we could shoot it. And in that sense, make it real as possible. So I was lucky enough to have a cousin, George Alvarez, that has his own dance team. He's featured all over the place, like ESPN and whatever other, I can't think right now as far as what shows he was on. But he's been all around on TV and all that. So I was just like, hey, cuz, you want to be in a movie? And then, of course, he was like, yeah, what are we doing? And that was always his attitude. What are we doing? So I also used him. He was my go-to because he had a large squad and still does of dancers with him. And then, of course, that's actually how I met Rhodey. Rhodey was a dancer with him.
I'm learning all sorts of things about someone that I've worked with. I didn't know he was a dancer on top of an actor.
Ask him.
I'm gonna. Well, hopefully he's watching, and if he's not, I'm gonna tell him, dude, you're all over our show. You got to give this a watch. But so are you a dancer by out of curiosity?
I'm a watcher.
So okay, so you were able to create this genuine, real thing using the talents of your family and also people that you have identified as being good in certain roles. You were able to create this. You were up there on stage speaking about it. What was that like? You've now created something that's gotten this kind of attention. Did you think movie making, that's my next step?
Yeah, actually, and okay, so I thought that was my next step, only because during my last month I think it was my last month at college, I was interning for a production company as well. So the product productions, and still to today, I call the guy my mentor, Phil Contursi. So with that said, he introduced me like to another level of production wise. So like when I came into his system, as I call it, he said everybody that comes across me always says they want to be a director. I call bull on that. I'm just, why is that? Like how are you gonna tell me what I want to do? Like that don't make sense. So and then he would say, well, you have to start from the bottom. That way everything that the grip position may know, everything that electrical needs to know, everything that camera department needs to know, and so on and so forth. So lighting, if you're a director, you got to know how to say, you know what, give me better lighting. I don't know, give me a scrim on this light and make it look, more authentic, or whatever the case is as far as your composition.
Let me ask you this. Is it anytime better not to know the rules so that way you can demand something and not know the limitations? You're like, I don't care your limitations. This is my vision. Or is it that important to step back and know what they can and cannot do? Because I always see it like, I feel like you can be more demanding, which kind of sucks again, because sometimes you work with people who are demanding. You're like, I wish they knew what I had to do. But what's the balance there?
I don't believe in that style as far as you not knowing what you want. Like you know what you want, but if you don't know what you need to get to that, that's going to be a problem.
And frustrate the crew, frustrate everyone else.
Right. Frustrate everyone, especially you, if you think, like because if you think about it, sometimes you have to reset the whole scene.
Yeah.
It's just like in our field right now with news, like when they demand something is like for instance, you have one shot set up and then you get a call saying, you know what, I need you somewhere else at whatever at 6:30, and I'm just like, this happened recently, and I was like, well, I have the mast up, I have all my gear out, so it's not going to be right away.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need 30 minutes, just to go ahead and clean up and make sure everything's right.
I kind of agree with you in that, and that I think it is very important for everyone to know their role. And I'm a big advocate that we should be riding along with each other. Obviously, when there's no COVID out there, riding along, shadowing other people, so we understand not only what we have to deal with, but what other people have to deal with, the pressures they are. I remember very clearly an assignment editor, for anyone watching, that's someone who dispatches, during when we used to wait out with Blagojevich, would tell us you need to stay from here to there. And you'd be like, I need a bathroom break. But okay, if you missed a shot, that's on you. And then one time they came out with us and they realized the frustration of waiting. And then after that, bathroom breaks were always accommodated. But you're exactly right. I think it's it's a paramount importance for people to realize what goes into it. And I got to get into that because I follow you on Facebook, and some of the setups that you have for a live shot are pretty extravagant, elaborate, lighting, scrims. So at some point you made that transition from wanting to be a movie maker to getting into news. And let's talk about how that went down.
So for the production company, I worked with them from 2010. So right after school, I joined them. And then in 2014, I was with them building a stage at Univision. And
the Univision stage we see now, is that it, or was there a set in between?
So we built a stage for them to make into their assignment desk area.
Oh.
So
that little elevated platform in the corner, is that the one?
Yes. So that was supposed to be like their big brand new stage, and then for whatever reason, I don't know who it was that axed it. I think it was like a new head honcho that came in and said, "No, I don't like it."
Right. Get rid of everything. Start over from scratch. Yeah, frustrate everybody. No, I'm just kidding.
So anyway, so I worked with the guy from 2010 to 2014. In 2014, I was building a stage, and then the operations manager at Univision came out, and he was just like, "We need more guys. We need more camera guys." And then I had a drill in my hand, and I was drilling pieces screws to hold up the stage or whatever. And then I was just like, "Wait a minute, that's actually me. I don't do this. I do camera." Like,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, so I was in the right place at the right time, and then I talked to him for maybe like a minute, and then he was like, "Well, if you do this, bring me your reel, and we'll meet Monday," which was the following Monday, and then I ended up getting the job there.
It's hilarious that you say that, because myself, Derek, we were together talking on Saturday, I believe, and we talked about the same thing, how we had applied to certain jobs, and it just happened that we were in the right place at the right time. With me, it was like, well, if I'm not going to get a job, I might as well take a tour, just as they needed a photographer. With him, I forget the story, but it was somewhat similar. He had positioned himself where he was right there when needed. And you, with a drill in your hand, are echoing the sentiment that sometimes it's good to just be in the right place at that right time.
Yeah. And just always be, like in Spanish, we say pendiente. So always alert.
Would you call me? No, so that means what? Ready to sell yourself, or just ready?
No, just alert, as far as like you're aware of your surroundings, and if you hear a key word like "I need," and that's another thing. Let me go back a little bit. So while working with Phil, he was like a drill sergeant. So like he was like, anytime somebody wants something, you go and help them out. If the talent if you could see that they're, they have a dry mouth or parched while they're trying to speak on camera, you can be that guy to give them some water, So he always pushed that on me and drilled that out. Like that's the type of style, like that workflow, I should say. So with that said, going back to that scenario, I just heard those words and I was just like, whoa, that's me. So and I used because I was actually wanting to freelance. So it wasn't that I applied to Univision. It was that I was always looking for freelance business because I was freelancing for like ESPN. While working with Phil, I learned to like throw myself out there because I'm actually good at what I do, or good enough at what I do to work for all the big markets, the big networks. So yeah.
So tell us some of the people you freelance for. I was kind of just going over your LinkedIn. You've done stuff for Sky TV. You've done stuff. It's TNT. Did I see? It seems like you were kind of all over the place while also doing this. So you weren't a lazy guy. You were hustling in this new endeavor.
Well, the thing is that so I learned, so doing music videos, that was pain, but not enough. Like if I wanted to take my wife, which was my girlfriend at the time, somewhere extravagant, I couldn't do that. So I had to take her to McDonald's for the dollar menu. So
so that was your motivation, huh? To be able to take her out to nicer, better places and get those bills paid.
I really my motivation was to provide, and I wasn't being able to provide. So I needed something bigger. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do to get to the next level? And one thing that I've, looking back, I learned that every 4 to 5 years, like if I look at my track record, something clicked in a sense to where I needed to go to the next level or get another boost. So like in the very beginning, all that happened around 2000, 2004. That's when the radio and TV started happening. 2010, that's when I got started working with Phil Conservancy with the production company. 2014, Univision. 2018, ABC.
I get it. I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to ask you now, was Phil upset? And here you were working on a project and now you've landed another gig, or was he very supportive of your finding that next stage?
He was both.
As a business owner myself in my past life, I could see how you could be both, especially if he was supportive of you, but he needed you to do stuff.
He believed in me. And I was becoming, like he was the face of the company, but I was becoming like his right-hand guy. But the thing is that, I wasn't getting paid enough. And the thing was, I thought I was until I saw something maybe I shouldn't have,
That's always what kind of does it.
Yeah. And I saw that he was, and this is just a business. Any business does this, really. I just saw paperwork that I wasn't supposed to see. So I was getting charged, or the company was charging a client a certain amount of money. And I saw what that was. And I was like, damn, is that what I'm worth? So why am I getting this and not something like that? So, like slowly I asked for a raise and I got enough no's to know, all right, it's time to move on.
Well, and I think, again, we both work at union shops. I'm the union vice president myself, and that's what I always advocate. Sometimes the secrecy is really what, once you find out, you really do see what you're worth. And I think that's why unions always advocate equity in pay and being very transparent about what their pay rates are, because then there's no room for this kind of like, oh, gosh, I'm worth this, but I'm getting this. There's dignity in that work. We should be demanding what we're getting. Now you've gone over to Univision, which is again, another step. What was your experience like there? Now you're working in a news operation that's out there in the community, telling the stories of people like yourself who were out there hustling, people who were out there telling the stories of their community, trying to keep it real. What was that like?
So that experience started like the first year, I would say, with them was it reminded me a lot of Status TV, like the show I used to produce, in a sense to where I show up with the camera and everybody gets excited, or they start cheering or whatever, like whatever the case may be. Obviously not to um, like the stuff we were doing yesterday, the triple murder or the triple shot downtown. So people won't be cheering in that sense, but like if
No,
you go
but
into
we should also, for the mainstream audience, kind of talk about how Telemundo and Univision are different from Main Street things. There really is a sense of identity with the community. You go out there, you're very much covering something in a community, very reflective, and more often than not, you're covering the good and the bad. That you're covering really what is the fabric of that community, which is what all stations tend to do. But I think there's more investment and resources in the Hispanic market. Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
And again, that would explain why people are excited. And generally, here's the thing: they see a truck and they realize, hey, it's our guys telling our story. So,
Right.
So people were cheering from you. You were showing up with a camera. You were able to get stories. Tell us more.
And then I guess from there, I became good friends with like the anchors, the reporters, the photogs. I'm still friends with them today.
I'll just stop popping up this comment here. I can't ignore that.
Of course, Steven, yeah, to pop up. But yeah, so with working there at Univision, towards the end of my tenure there, I got to a point to where I wanted to do more, but I didn't have enough to do it. I want to provide. So my main thing, and this again, I bring Phil back into the story because he like drilled this into me. When it comes to the talent, in our case, the reporters, I always want to provide them with the best possible scenario when it comes to lighting, audio, or whatever. So at the end of Univision, I wasn't making enough to buy that myself, since they weren't giving me the materials to do it. And I would ask for it, and then it was like, that's not in the budget, or we don't do that here. Like, slow down, relax. You're moving too fast, and you're doing too much. I got a lot of that, and that's just my character. I like to do that because what you said earlier, as far as you can't sit still, you got to keep moving around, and that's who I am. The ADHD.
Well, and I think that's a corporate resistance to creativity and trying to tell a story out of the box. I think yourself, myself, and most people who do what we do are really passionate about telling that story and really have a vision how to tell it. And again, you can't 100% fault them, but these corporations sometimes will put us in boxes in terms of this is the budget, this is the confinement, this is how much resources we can give time-wise, money-wise. And people like us, then we start thinking, what can we do? What'd you do?
So I just started buying my own stuff. I was like, you know what? I want it a certain way, and I'm not allowed to do it. I mean, I'm allowed to do it. So so let me now go from Univision into ABC. So
let's do that.
And this is gonna answer the question to what you're asking. So
he's creating an allegory for us. By storytelling, he's creating an answer. I love it. A mark of a good storyteller. Let's do it.
Right. So, all right. So, in 2018, when I started working with them, I followed the rules. I did everything by the book to what they, asked. I did it their way. And then here comes January 2019. I'm like, all right, I did enough of what you're saying. Now let me do what you're asking, but let me throw my own flavor to it. So, and then I started bringing the extra lights and this, that, and the other. Now that sparked an interest with all the reporters. And then obviously the photogs, they started asking questions like, who gave you that? Why are you bringing that? So I became a topic for some time, which is cool because, so I was the new guy. So now I'm talking to everybody. So that gave me a chance to really like dive into conversations with people I really don't talk to.
Again, the purpose of what we're doing here too, because it's by these conversations that we can take this relationships to the next level. So were they good or bad? Were the people supportive, resistant? What'd you get?
No, it's supportive. You know, some people like, you know, like, where'd you get that? You know, like, can you show me how you pulled this off? I liked how you did that, or you know, just all these questions on not to not to. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm saying they asked me for help, but it wasn't like that. It was just more like, show me how you did this. You know, I want some shots to look like you, or like my good friend Paul says, well, that's not in the budget. So when you're around, why don't you help me out and bring your stuff here?
So, okay, now tell us about Channel 7, that transition.
So it was pretty good. So, you know, again, throughout my time at Univision, I was freelancing as well. And I, all the, you know, the big names that we talked about earlier, the ESPN, TNT, and all that. So I was balancing all of that with Univision, and it still wasn't enough, or it was getting too crazy to where at the Univision camp they were saying or asking, "Are you available this day?" And then I kept saying no because I called them my yearlies. So my yearlies were like Spike TV or UFC will come into town, and then I was like their guy, one of their guys, and it was just like a yearly thing. So I kept saying no to some of their jobs, you know, Univision jobs, and they're like, "Well, if you keep saying no, you know, we're gonna end up, you know, getting rid of you." And then, you know, so and then that makes me look for more. So and then I landed a job on the programming side of ABC through a friend of mine, Gina, and she got me in doing teleprompter for Stacy Baca, for Judy Sue. Um, so basically, doing stuff for them just on a teleprompter. And the crazy story for me, the way I got into, and that's like a third party. So I was connected to ABC by a third party. The way I got connected to them was during one of the jobs. Again, right place, right time.
Yeah.
The camera operator was saying he had some issue with the camera. He was like, "Oh, I can't figure this out," and I'm behind the teleprompter, like the computer, and I'm like, "You mind if I, you know, like check it out? Because I know cameras." So I went up there, and then I showed him how to do a certain thing, and then Holly, which is the programming director, she was there, or one of is she a director there? I believe she's one of the directors there, and she she basically asked me, you know, about cameras because we're looking for camera guys. So I'm like, yeah, that's just what I do. And so
You're like,
basically,
hurry up and let me get through this the show real quick, and let's talk.
so you know, long story short, we, you know, like I showed her some my reel, and then I came in and started working with them, and then I became a favorite for them, like a go-to. And then an opportunity came for a daily hire at ABC, and so and the ABC, like me entering ABC was I think it was April 2017, and then by around April May 2018, that's when I became a DH for them, a daily hire.
All right, and from what it looks like on your Facebook, I mean, it seems like you're able to exercise your creativity, have live shots that are exactly to your vision. I notice you put some time and attention to detail out there. Tell me about your personal pride when it comes to something like that, in terms of getting it just crisp and just right. Because again, I'll tell you, sometimes you see live shots and they're extravagant, and sometimes you see those and they're less so. What drives you to go that extra step?
So for me, because everything has to be a challenge. Like for me, how can I outbeat, you know, my last shot, or how can I outbeat the setup time? So I'm always, you know, challenging myself uh, to do that whole setup that you see in the pictures in like 7 minutes. You know, so you see me out there looking like a madman, you know, but that's just me in my own world, having fun.
Well, and if you guys haven't seen what his stuff looks like, I'm sure you'll give me permission to share it the next time you put something that impresses me, because you guys got to check this out. It's phenomenal. But you were talking about the challenge and the challenge to yourself. Let's talk about the challenge of what it's been like the last 3, 4, 5 months working in a pandemic. So now you're trying to put on this quality of work, telling community stories with a very different situation. We've kind of talked to all of our guests like that. How has that been for you professionally, and then how has it been for you as a triathlete, because that's one of your hobbies? I know you're out there, you're competing with that. Clearly the world has changed for that. How has this affected you?
So it's funny because last year we had, for the triathlon last year, they changed it to a duathlon, which is only 2 out of the 3.
Waters were choppy, is that what it was, if I remember, or was it something else?
What was that?
Was it the choppy waters that year?
Yeah. Oh, it was the choppy waters, and the water levels were high. So like the way it is now on where the walkway is, it's all filled with water. So, there's no way you could get out of the water without slipping, sliding, hurting yourself. So for safety precautions, they canceled the swimming portion last year. So, and then this year came around with the whole pandemic, and we're just like, like maybe that was a sign. I don't know, So as far as that, so personally, like my training has gone nowhere because obviously the beaches are closed, so I can't swim like I usually do. YMCA, I believe, is still closed. I used to go to them all the time as well. Yeah, the running, I don't, I really don't know how to feel. Like obviously, since there's no definite answer as far as the virus, like how to control it, how to cure it, or what have you.
Yeah.
The 606 was my path. I don't do that anymore because out of safety, I don't want to bring something home and then get my family sick.
Is it frustrating? We're media essential workers. We have to go. We have to do our thing, to not be able to come back and have that hobby. That's something that's a mental distraction, or has it between family time and work time? Has that been enough, or do you still want that time to go and train?
I think I still want that time, just for like that was a place of peace for me, as far as like running. I just zone out and I'm just at peace, doing either running, swimming. And I mean, I could trust my wife enough to take care of the kids. So I'm in my own world, worry free, but I know I'm on a time limit, if that makes sense.
It totally does. So I want to talk a little about your family. What has family time been with them? And then I want you to give advice to, I know you got little ones, to other little ones who view media as something they want to get into, or even if not media, just give us general advice. Like you said, you kind of hustled your way, found your own way through following your passion. Give some advice to kids who might, if not watch this now, their parent might just say, listen to just this part.
I would say to always work hard. Never take no as an answer. Know what you want and know that it's possible. Always figure out a way. Like I tell my kids, if they come across something, or if they say I can't do it, I don't want, like something as simple as putting a shirt on, like for my kids, and I can't do it. Like my 2-year-old son is telling me that now. I can't do it. Well, figure it out. Figure it out. You're 2 years old. Come on, man. Get to it. Chop, chop.
Yeah, sounds like my dad. He'd be like, yeah, you can't spell a word. Sound it out. Sound it out. I'm not telling you. And that was just the other day. So, yeah I get it.
That was this morning that I was telling him. But yeah, so it's as far as advice, I don't know what else to say. Just, follow your dreams. Never stop. Break down that wall. And if you see something you really want, grab it. Don't let it go.
Great advice to the kids.
Still holding it.
And any final words you'd like to say in general? Again, I want to thank you for coming on, sharing your story. I know it's an hour out of your day, an hour out of, I think you worked this morning, right? If I'm not mistaken.
No, so yesterday and today were supposed to be my weekend.
Yeah.
they called me in yesterday, so my weekend was broken.
So you have one weekend day this week, and you've taken an hour out of that time to kind of talk and share your story, for which I can't say thank you enough, because again, it's very important for us to get to know each other and who it is we're working amongst. Give a final word to us, if you would, Octavio.
Final word is be friends with everyone. Never know who you need, and you never know who you're gonna come across again. You know, I met a lot of good friends from Norman I forgot to mention, at the state, during my time at Univision, I worked for Pat Quinn for the year of 2014.
Norman actually did say hello to you earlier. I'm gonna pop that up there too.
Oh, okay. So yeah, with him, you know, we're good friends, and still today we text and talk to each other all the time. So just be friends with everyone. You never know who you're gonna need, and or you never know who you're gonna ask for help either. You might need help one day. So if you're an a-hole, you're not gonna get too much help, and that's it. Always try to help the next person, because you never know how they could help you in the future.
I think that's great. And I would also say, you know, ask a question. How's your day? How's your family? Tell me, ask something to get to know a little bit more about someone than you would otherwise superficially. Next time I see Rhodey, I'm going to ask him, so how was it acting in that film? Again, something you don't know. And there's so many ways we probably have similarities with people we see out there, with coworkers. I used to play hockey when I was growing up. I didn't know my coworkers did until one day came up in discussion. Let's see how we can get closer as a community, because we're all out there doing the same thing. And again, I really appreciate you taking 1 hour out of your one weekend day to kind of talk with us. Thank you so much for that, Octavio.
For doing this, having this platform for all of us to get to know each other.
Oh, absolutely.
Good job
and
to you.
Thank you. And again, I'm going to just real quickly say, it is vitally important more than ever now. We've all heard about some of the economic downturns and consequences going on in our industry. So I think it's very important that we stand in solidarity with each other and know each other, and know that these are not numbers, that we're people taking an investment in our community and public trust and working together. So get to know each other. Thanks again, Octavio.
Yep, anytime. Bye.